Hi, Tripti.
Hi, Kavitta.
Thank you so much for being here. It is entirely my pleasure to have someone as accomplished as you to join me on my podcast today.
It's my pleasure entirely. Thank you for having me here today.
Yeah. So, Tripti, I'm so excited because, I have all these questions, concerns. I have all these thoughts about what our young students are doing, and the fact that you work with adolescents and young adults makes me very excited to get a sort of clinical viewpoint on a lot of things that we're going to talk about today. So let's jump right into it because I have lots of questions in my mind, and I'm sure everyone listening to this is going to look for tips, tricks, suggestions on what they can do with their own children, and educators what they can do with their students, and so on. I've I've come across something interesting, and I'd like to start at the very beginning by talking about it. So, we've always talked about how we are helicopter parents, how we are tiger moms, how we are uh, micromanaging our children all the time, how we are doing even the smallest tasks for them without giving them a chance to do this. And then I was introduced to this concept of lighthouse parenting, where, yes, you guide, where you show the direction, but then you stand back and you allow your students or you allow your children to go out and do stuff. So let's start by talking a little more about these various concepts.
Right. So I think helicopter parenting has been a term which has been around for a bit now, right? And it obviously, like you said, refers to micromanaging every aspect of a child's life, offering unsolicited advice, not letting them make their own decisions. It's very directive parenting, slightly intrusive as well, you know, and that develops children into adolescents and adults who are sometimes uh, incapable, if I can use the word, to take decisions on their own. They don't feel a sense of autonomy, they don't feel a sense of independence that has not developed. Also, for children who are with this parenting, I always feel that they develop into adolescents who can't take failure very easily, and they don't have a very good bounce back because they're so like they're literally directed into doing what the parent might think might be the right thing. And perhaps the parent does have the knowledge, right? They're older, little more experienced, so I think they know what the predicted result is going to be. So it leaves no scope for any chance. It leaves no scope for mistakes. It leaves no scope for learning and growth, right? Cut to the parenting that you were talking about, which is lighthouse parenting. That's establishing boundaries, setting limits, yet taking a step back and watching your children go through the journey of doing that particular thing. So, to give you an example, it's like, okay, go grab the cookie jar. It is a glass jar. Be careful. If it breaks, you could hurt yourself. Not you will hurt yourself if you pick up that. That might be a paradigm of the uh, helicopter parenting. No, 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 no. I'll take it out for you. You can't do it. I will do it. It's made of glass. No. Lighthouse parenting will be like, okay, I trust you can take that out. However, if it falls, let's clean it up. That's lighthouse parenting. So you've told the child that, okay, be careful about it because it's a glass jar. If it falls, it could break. And the consequence, which is cleaning up the mess, is going to be something you're going to have to do. So that kind of prepares a child, firstly, makes them more emotionally aware of how this process is going to be, and they feel a sense of autonomy. Okay, I can do this if I'm careful. And if it breaks, the parent does not reprimand by saying, I told you so. They stand back and they watch the child pick up the cookies because that was the earlier, so to speak, instruction that I already gave. So they wrap up the cookies perhaps, and the parent can help depending on the age. That's how lighthouse parenting manifests.
Right. So then it's right to say that we are a product of the parenting style followed by our parents that conditions us knowingly or unknowingly into young adults and then further on adults in the real world. Am I right in saying that?
To be very honest, no. And I'll explain why. At least when you look at the Indian society, we're in a flux. We're moving from a joint family setup to a nuclear family setup. So this form of helicopter parenting has is probably more of a nuclear family setup phenomena. In joint families, children were out and about with their cousins, with parents having very little direction all the time. It was probably the oldest siblings that were teaching the younger siblings. So this change of being helicopter parenting has happened now when the family systems have changed.
No, my question was slightly different. My question is it right to say that the parenting style a parent follows, whatever that style they may choose to have, leads to conditioning that an individual perceives, and that leads to who they become as young adults and adults further? Is that right?
Yes, of course, that is true. How sometimes how we were parented, it reflects in how we've grown up as adults, and we transmit that to our offsprings as well. So yes, that continues.
Right. So when we look at what are things that influence us as a society or as things that affect our personalities, one of the things that is a cause for a lot of questions in my mind is social media, the role social media plays, and what impact it has on young minds when they're exposed to so much and they yet cannot make choices to decide what is right. I wouldn't even say what is right, but what is age appropriate to consume. So tell us a little bit and talk to us a little bit about this, about raising children in the age of social media.
It's a tough one, this one, raising children in this world of social media, because we as parents aren't aware of this world, firstly. At when we were growing up, this was not a challenge for our parents, thankfully. But we as parents have to deal with this kind of, scenario. And I feel, as a person who works with younger people, I think it's even more challenging for younger people to be so out there with social media. To be living in such a world is a very hard task for our adolescents to do. You have to understand that so much scrutiny, so much judgment, so much comparison that happens because of being on social media. Friends, you're cool, you're not cool, or how people perceive you. A lot of that has come down to how our personalities on social media are. Having said that, I'm often asked this question: should we just stop it? Should we not have our children do it? Well, countries like Australia have completely banned social media usage for children under 16. And I'm guessing that it does have far reaching consequences on the confidence, on the self esteem of children, on trauma. I've had many cases where children have been traumatized because of social media. So, but social media is also like a double-edged sword. It has its benefits as well as it has its flip sides. Now, to be able to help a child or an adolescent adopt social media in a healthy way, that's our responsibility as parents, right? So you cannot remove it. Yes, I'm waiting to see how this effect in Australia is going to be, but there are a lot of you need to understand there are a lot of stakeholders when it comes to media usage. There are educators, there are teachers, there are parents, of course, siblings, the peer group, as well as tech companies. Correct. And people who are at the manufacturing side of all this technology, right? So it's more stakeholder driven. So, to be really able to make a change at a bigger level, I think every party needs to kind of understand that they have an ownership to
And they need
the.
to contribute to the cause.
Yes, and they have to be accountable to that, right? But as far as children are concerned and as parents are concerned, I think it's important to educate them about social media usage.
So one of the things, Tripti, I work with students in middle school and early years of high school. And sometimes very accomplished students who are doing great things, who are achieving things beyond their years. But you tell them to start a social media account or you put your name to something, the initiative that you're running so well, the kind of hesitancy, that you see from these children is so profound that it takes you a long, long time to give them the self confidence that it's okay, you will not be judged. And I've had students who have written wonderful things, who have done inventions, who have gone beyond themselves to give back to society. But when it comes to sharing on social media, they shrink back and they will say, but I don't want to do that. So I think the fear of judgment and this test tube culture, what is cool and what is not cool, I think is something that as parents, everyone needs to deal with and learn how to support your students. So tell us maybe three ways in which a parent or a mentor can support their students when giving them the confidence to deal with social media.
Okay, so one of the things that we can do is definitely build their confidence in their own strengths. We need to understand that everyone has strengths and weaknesses, right? So, highlighting the strengths that a child might have or an adolescent might have would be the stepping stone or the foundation of being able to have that confidence to put yourself out there on a social platform, right? So, building confidence. Second is motivating them in the right direction, right? Avoiding comparisons while motivating. Just wholly wholesome, positive motivation, encouragement. Those are some of the things that can help them feel more confident of themselves. And the third is, this is a very important point, Kavita. Telling them that not everything that is available on social media is real. So, to be able, our social media is peppered with fakery, so to give them a good sense of being able to judge what is generated by an AI or what truly might be happening or what is real. So I think when parents have discussions with their kids about social media usage, about what they watched, and this doesn't start at adolescence, it starts way younger. When a child's watching something on YouTube and you stop them and like, what did you watch? What do you understand? Ah, and just get into some conversations about it. So be curious about your child's social media usage, right? Not uh, investigative. So when you're curious about what they are watching, how they are watching, and you're able to develop a sense of right and wrong media usage in terms of what they're consuming, I think that will help them build the confidence to be in this kind of a world.
I think that's so important. So be curious about your child's social media usage and not investigative. So I think that is a key takeaway from this point for me. So when you say talk to your students, how important, in your opinion, is communication within the family to have successful families?
I would use the word adaptive and functional families, but it's the most important thing, Kavita, because there's so much happening. There's so many things for parents. Parents have a hard deal right now. So I think communication, good, open communication, non-judgmental communication by parents is very important for children to feel safe in this world. Our families are perhaps the first space where we feel safe. And I think to create safe spaces for our children, one of the most important things is open communication.
Yes, absolutely. So, one of the things that I like to say is, we always want A's and A stars from our students, right? Students are looking for the same A's from their parents, okay? And for me, these A's is appreciation. Appreciate the effort they are putting in, which might not always lead to the desired result, but appreciate the effort. A for applause. Give them applause for every time they step out of their comfort zone. Give them applause every time they have tried something and failed. Give them applause when every time they have figured out something new. And the last one I say is affection. Genuine affection where you take out time for your day and, listen to them, talk with them, understand what's going on in their world. And if a student, I believe, or a child has these three things, I think they're just set for that success that every parent wants for their child.
Absolutely. I think these are the building blocks. No, again, that we are uh, putting in so much positivity into the child that the child will automatically start feeling confident of their own selves, and that will reflect in their choices later on.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
They will have a sense of confidence. They will have a sense of, okay, if I goof up, I can still manage the consequences. Right? If I do something new, I'm not going to be judged. Or even if I am judged, I know I want to try this and I'm going to go ahead with it. Right? That kind of confidence to be in this really complicated world is needed. It's of paramount importance in today's day to have to give all these three things to our children these days.
Correct. Okay. So when we're saying that, students are living in this complex world, a reality of our times is bullying, right? And I'm sure it existed even earlier. It's just that I think more students are coming forth with it. We are seeing more heartbreaking consequences of the bullying. We feel, I mean, I feel as a generation, we've become harsher, less strong, we've become less resilient. So tell me a little bit about steps in which way that a parent can look out for bullying. A lot of times, a student will not come to you and tell you, I'm being bullied. But what behavioral changes can a parent look out for a middle school or a high school student, for them to dig deeper to figure out what's going on, if it is bullying?
Right. So one of the key indicators, Kavita, would be that adolescents start becoming more withdrawn. Right? There is a lack of pleasure in enjoying the things that they used to enjoy earlier. uh, Irritability would be higher, certainly higher. So, if your kid is snapping a lot recently, please now investigate what's going on, right? I know children are into social media from younger grades. If you have their accounts, please see the kind of content that they are following. What is their feeds on Instagram? Please check on that, because they may AI generates a lot of content which is similar to what you want to hear. So you'll get a clue about what kind of material they are watching, which will also give you an insight if they're being bullied or not, right? Um, Withdrawal from peer groups, refusal to go to school, right? Drop in academic grades, uh, disinterest in studying, right? These are some of the key indicators which would warrant a parent kind of asking the adolescent what's going on really.
And at what point should a parent step into the ring? Uh, there are various ways of handling it. One is, of course, imbibing your student or your child with the backbone to kind of deal with the situation. The other is to step in and fight the fight yourself. The third is close your eyes and ignore and hope it will go away. Um, what should a parent do, and at what stage should each of the above? I mean, I know the last is not never an option, but what stage should a parent step in into the ring to deal with it head on, and till when can you sort of support your child from the outside?
I think step one is, if your child has shared that they are getting bullied, step one is to empower them with skills that can help them cope with that bullying on their own, right? Because that also shows a level of trust that the parent has. Again, I'm going back to the lighthouse parenting. I will give you the skills, I will teach you to be assertive, and I would like you to practice that. Okay? Let them, give them a gentle push to go and handle it on their own. If they are able to do that, well, we've success, great. You've learned a skill. You've also managed to solve your own problem. You've learned problem solving skills. You've gotten some confidence, assertiveness skills. Well done, you. But if it's happening constantly and the even though they are trying to be assertive, it's not working out, then take it to the next step perhaps. Don't let them be, miserable constantly over and over again, despite them sharing that I am trying, but it's not, the person isn't backing off. Also, in today's day, Kavita, the level of bullying has really changed. It's not so mild, it can be really mean, you know and that, as I think a parent, you have to judge whether it's okay to step back or you need to come in. If it is really severe and it's the absolute not nice kind of bullying, step in right away, don't wait. But if you feel that there is a chance that, okay, this can be handled by my child if I give them the skills, then let them try it.
So, if I'm hearing you right, step one, assess the situation. Step two, empower your child to try and handle, but keep a close watch on the situation. And step three, if at any point you feel your student or your child needs help, don't be afraid to jump in and assist them in that situation.
Absolutely. You got to be the cheerleader. You've got to be with them, right? So, though you let them try it on their own, you must step in as a parent if there is a need to do that.
Correct, correct. So, when we talk about, so this is a two-edged sword almost. One fundamental skill that I think the younger generation needs to build very strongly is resilience, right? So, it's an ever changing world, it's a rapidly escalating world. Those days when you could sort of, um, flounder at every change are gone. You just have to have resilience to deal with change, which is a reality of our times. Teaching them resilience is one thing, but not allowing them to get bullied is another, right? So, as parents, I think it's very important that we also understand the difference between these two. And I'd like you to talk a little bit about empowering your students with some skills or your children with some skills, and at the same time, what to watch out for.
Right. Again, bullying is repetitive and it has a deeper impact on children. Remember, if you're building resilient children, you are already from very younger age giving them the skills to cope with um, a failure, a comment said here or there, something that has not gone down, disagreements. You're teaching them to cope with difference in opinions between people, right? All of that is taken care when you're teaching children resilience, right? Resilience manifests as being able to take in other people's opinion, showing your strengths, being strong on your opinions if you want to, being assertive, not aggressive, right? Those come under the gamut of being resilient. Bullying will manifest very differently. It will manifest as meanness. It will manifest as a deliberate attempt to kind of put you down. When the when If we are building resilient children, they will know that this is not okay. This is affecting me at a different level. This is not being kind. You can use the word, this is not, I cannot, you know empathize with why this person might want to be this way with me. When the kid is able to get into that space, they'll realize that it is bullying. So when the child comes to you and says that, okay, uh, you know mama, this happened, or dad, this happened, give it a thought. And if you have developed resilience with your child, be like, okay, but how do you cope with that? How did you cope with that? Or what did you do about it? If they're unable to move from the situation and they're getting really affected, then obviously it would be like a situation of them feeling bullied. Again, it's a bit subjective because it's also on the perspective of how the child is taking it. Right? When you look at, and this is how complex our brains are, for someone being said a word will not matter, right? In class, someone said a word, uh, to give an example, someone wears specs and someone calls him specky, they may not feel bad about it. But for another child who feels differently, who's emotionally more susceptible to that or more sensitive, might take that as as something that affects them more deeply. So you also got to assess how your child is, how your student is. Correct. So you got to base it on their temperament and how they are taking it in also. It's not like one rule applicable for all. Yes, for the more, more grosser, more meaner, you know, things. Obviously, there is a baseline. Okay, this is bullying for sure. But when you talk about smaller forms of bullying, it also means how the student or how your child is taking it. That also becomes very important. So.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about how important is discipline in a child's life, and is it really the job of the parent to be a disciplinarian in their upbringing?
I think again, this is a matter of different stakeholders. You know, the discipline is important. I think discipline um, sort of keeps children within some limits. That's it, right? But it's not only the job of the parents, I feel, in today's day and age, because children are at school for a lot longer hours. They're in their different classes. So I think it again becomes a job of a lot of other stakeholders to kind of imbibe that sense of discipline, uh, dedication towards whatever you're doing, those kind of things. So I think it's again it's a lot of people responsible for it. But I do understand that we always um, put it on the families and on the parents also, that they're responsible for disciplining the child. But I think in today's day and age, a lot of people are responsible for the disciplining
So,
process.
I believe, Tripti, that the discipline starts from home. Because, yes, there are a lot of stakeholders, but really what a child imbibes, whether consciously or subconsciously, is mirroring a lot of what they see in the environment. Now, within the school structure, we already know there is a discipline in place, right? There is a timetable, there are assignments to be done, the bell rings, there's break, there's sports, there's whatever. There is a structure that is followed. But within the home, I feel, and I see it with my work with the students, that students who lead a more sort of disciplined life, and when I mean discipline, I mean, regulated bedtimes, I mean, certain number of hours of reading or schoolwork or curiosity, I find those minds tick a different way versus a free hand left to, okay, he needs to finish his homework. How he or she does it is not my problem. Even when the child is actively asking for help, the parents sort of choose to not engage in that. So, in my opinion, and correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that a large part of the style of parenting sets what is discipline for the child.
Of course, of course. A simple thing like if you're using, as parents, you're using your phone on the dinner table and you're asking your child not to use their phones on the dinner table, that's not going to hold right. So yes, discipline starts with parents disciplining themselves first. I think it starts there. So if parents are able to discipline themselves and uh, communicate that to their children in their own behaviors, then that would just organically go to the children.
Correct, correct. I'll tell you personally, my mom, I believe, was the best mother in the world. But she did not have great focus on exercise for herself personally. And even though I knew exercise is good, I knew we must do it every day, it did not become a part of my life till much later in my life when I chose it as an individual choice I was making. But because it became a part of our household, I mean, my life journey, I found that my daughter takes to exercise in a completely different manner versus what I did because of the way my mom felt about exercise, or did not feel about exercise in this case. So, it just proves to me. So, to tell a child, sit down and study, while all the time you are engaging in pursuits which are completely, which completely do not exhibit any kind of discipline or dedication or hard work, is tough even for the child's mind to understand.
Absolutely. If it's in a, you talked about having structure in schools,
Yes.
right? Now, I'm a great believer in the household being semi structured,
Right.
not
Yes.
completely structured, because that they're
Yes.
already getting at school.
Correct.
If we don't give children a slightly semi structured, and maybe even parts of the day being unstructured,
Yes.
we're not letting them free think, we're not letting them decide, we're not letting them apply their minds
Yes.
to how fruitfully can I use this time.
Yes.
Even if it's just looking at a tree, getting bored, that's something children need to learn in today's day and age. The ability to just stop and think. So it has to be a combination of the structured and unstructured in the household space, right? So how do parents create that balance becomes very important, right? So if you're a completely unstructured person and you're telling your child to be structured, that's not going to go through with the children, because children learn of behaviors more than what's lip service.
Correct.
They will learn of, if I'm sitting and eating a burger and I'm telling my child eat dal roti, I'm telling you for a fact they will eat it 10 times. 11th time they'll be like, buddy, you're eating something different, I'd like to eat that with you. So keep
You
it
will be
healthy.
amazed. I have 10-year-olds and 8-year-olds tell me they can't meet with me for 30 minutes because they don't have time in their day. So I'm running multiple sort of entrepreneurial ventures, and I have time in my calendar to connect with them. But they lead such busy lives that they cannot find time in their calendars or diaries to set up our appointments. And then I wonder, you know, what are they doing with their time? And that leads me to question, um, what is going on with parenting, and so let's talk a little bit about this free time, and it's okay to be bored, right? Now we see that when children are very, very young, they are put into structured programs. And their days are sort of scheduled so much that there's very little free time or play time or getting bored time. How important is it for a child to get bored?
Very important, because while being bored, the child learns to think. When I'm just looking at something randomly and I'm not even focusing, my brain is running. I'm thinking different things. I'm looking at the same thing with a different perspective. I'm playing with a toy like this and I'm wondering, why doesn't the toy go ulta? Why can't it, flip over? Why can't it go like that? How will I get the space to do that if I'm constantly rule bound, or I'm constantly supposed to do it in that way? I think boredom always gives rise to inventions. How do you say that? It's the creative mind of your child that you let loose, the imaginative power of a child that you let loose when they are bored. So, I often do that with my child. I just lie down on the floor or on the bed and I look at the tree and I'm like, okay, let's see what's new on the tree today. Just spend a few minutes doing that.
Correct. So it sparks the mind into thinking of ideas, into creativity, into new patterns that is not available to them in their normal day to day.
Perhaps, and it's important, how busy are our lives? You just said that you're trying to fit in children for half an hour, which means your schedule is as busy as their schedule. So the ability to learn to take a pause is something we need to really teach our children to do. So I think that becomes really important.
Correct. Yes. And I think also the fact that, uh, when we talk of unstructured time, so one of the strategies that I use at Head Start Mentorship is that when I am speaking with a student, and let's say that I like to spend the first 5 minutes getting to know what's going on and to go beyond the normal, obvious chatter. And when a student stops at about 2 minutes or 3 minutes, so I sit in silence for the balance 2 minutes. And it's in that silent period is when things which are not on the surface, which are deep, which they would have ordinarily, maybe they are also not aware that it's bothering them, or it's concerning them, or it's a something that is a niggle in their minds. That's when those nuggets come out.
And how did that come out? Because the silence that you gave
Space.
them, the space that you give them, the boredom that their brains went through in those 2 minutes of not having to actively think about something in that moment. That's when newer ideas or deeper ideas come forth.
So I think an easy tip for all parents listening who want to connect with their students and with their children is spend some time in the week with each other and have it as unstructured time with one another. It's not the same as going to the park. It's not the same as going for a movie. It's not the same as going out for a meal. It's not the same as going out for a party. But spend some unstructured time. You can do it in the park, you can do it in the car, you can do it in the house, but take some time that is just yours, even if you spend it in silence. And we promise you, it will not be spent in silence. Maybe the first few minutes in silence, but then you will make meaningful, deep connections and conversations that will really give you an insight into what is going on in your child's life, in your child's mind.
So true. I wish parents really did that. You'll encourage spontaneity, you'll encourage fun, you'll encourage playfulness in your parenting. And that's what gives rise to really healthy children, you know?
Yes, I could not agree more with that. As a parent, so we've given one tip of having this structured time, unstructured time. Tell me, in your experience, Tripti, when you've seen children who are going through difficult childhoods and you've seen children who are thriving in their childhood, what would be the top three things you would tell a parent to do with their children to have well-being of all kinds, not just academic, but emotional well-being and socially well structured into the fabric of society well-being, and then following their passions well-being? What would you say would be those top three things?
I think one of the things that we really need to develop in our children is EQ, emotional quotient.
Okay.
The ability to be able to connect with their emotions. That's a huge predictor, in my understanding, of how um, adaptable, how functional, how happy children will be. So I think the ability to get in touch with their emotions, the ability to, and I think these are things that parents can teach them or inculcate in them, the ability to how to handle a failure. That's a very important thing in today's day and age. How do I inculcate of my how do I inculcate that in myself firstly? How do I take in a failure? And how can I inculcate that in my child? Because we're in a very competitive world, Kavita, extremely competitive. So for a child to have that extra edge, it is very important for them to know how I can bounce back. Taken the failure, how can I bounce back? And for that, they need to be in touch with their emotions. And that is a great predictor of healthier minds of children and adolescents, and thereby moving to young adult space.
Right. So, how important is it for a child to be able to come back and tell their parents, I failed?
Very important. And this is another thing that lighthouse parenting does. And if you follow that paradigm, it does do that. If your child comes back and says that, okay, I goofed up, I broke it, I, did this, it's your reaction in that moment which is very important.
Correct.
If you get judgmental, you've taught your kid also that it's not okay to make mistakes. I'm not allowing you to make mistakes.
Correct.
The child imbibes, I'm not allowed to make mistakes. I cannot make mistakes. If I make mistakes, I'm not good enough.
Right.
That's not what you want to want children to grow up with. So if they come to you having goofed up, take a breath, take a step back, because sometimes you don't know how to cope with that, and it's very instinctual. You want to say, "Told you so," but don't refrain from trying to say that. Though you may be right as a parent because you do have more experience, and I value that, knowledge that parents might have. Step back and be like, right, and what did we learn out of it?
Right. Yeah.
What did you get out of it? Like, not get as in what did you get doing that, but what did you learn? And how is it that we can avoid to do that, from here on? You know, okay, is there a skill that you feel you require to be able to overcome this space? This is secondary conversation. First is I'm here.
Correct. And how important is tonality and body language while you're saying all this to your child?
Very important, Kavita, because what will happen is even if I'm saying, yeah, you need to learn from this, my facial expressions, my body language will communicate to the child that, okay, these are just words being mouthed, but that's not how my parent feels. And I've disappointed my parent, right? So it is very important to be in tune with your own emotions. It is, and if you're feeling a certain way, take a step back. It's okay. Like I said, at sometimes, in this world, we're gobsmacked with a lot of things that might come our way, and you're like, oh gosh, I don't know how to cope with this as a parent because my parents never had to deal with that. Take a break. Be like, Beta, I understand. I'm right here for you. But I need to process this first before I'm able to help you in this situation. Showing your own vulnerability to a child isn't a bad thing sometimes.
Correct.
It's completely okay. And it completely removes you from a pedestal being a parent to that being with your child.
Correct.
So allow yourself to feel that way. Allow yourself to be genuine and authentic with how you're feeling in that moment. Say, but I just need to process this.
Correct.
Give me 10 minutes. Give me 15. But I'm here. You can keep talking to me. All right? Let them talk. Maybe while they're talking, obviously our brains are running, and perhaps we'll process it sooner. But take that space. It's okay. We haven't, parents in today's generation haven't dealt with all the kinds of perils that this world offers.
Absolutely. So, another thing I read the other day, how can parents of today be expected to bring up their children the same way as they were brought up by their parents? Because it's a totally new world. So, while parents are grappling to settle down, understand this new world, they also have the responsibility of bringing up the next generation to feel comfortable in this new world. So it's actually, parenting in today's times is one of the hardest things to do, but it's also one of the loveliest things to do.
Absolutely. It's beautifully rewarding to learn from your children. One more thing I'd like to point out, this world is a complicated world, right? We ourselves don't know the effects of a lot of things. How they're going to manifest. There are no researchers, there's no data available. What we can do is we can learn with our children. Be open to learning as a parent, and you will probably prosper with your child. I think that's one of my biggest learnings as a parent, and biggest learnings as a psychologist who works with families, that you need to learn with your children.
As we wrap up, I'm going to come up with something controversial and say, I believe it's not my job as a parent to always keep my child happy. Do you agree with that approach?
Of course not. It's not my job to keep them happy. It's my job to teach them how to be happy. It's my job to help them find glimmers, as they call it in today's world, to find glimmers in the day. It's my job to be a happy parent, to be a content parent, to be a progressive parent, and that will automatically create that space of happiness for my child.
Right.
I cannot ensure that I remove obstacles. That would be like, uh, a very um, a very different way of parenting where where I think that it is my job to keep my child happy. No, it's my job to to expect that my child will go through all kinds of emotions and be right there to help them cope with all the emotions that they may go through.
So, as a parent, why do we not, why are we not keen for our children to experience all kinds of emotions? Because we know that invariably in life, as human beings, we will be faced with situations which give us all kinds of emotions. So it could be joy one day, it could be pain the other day, it could be hurt the other day, it could be disappointment on another day, it could be great achievement the other day, it could be a sense of weakness, it could be a sense of urgency, it could be, but as parents, instinctively, why are we so afraid to let our children experience emotions, um, which are which are not necessarily only the happy emotions, the positive emotions? So why are we so afraid? Because as a parent, if I help my child navigate through a moment of weakness, through a moment of disappointment, am I not setting them up for success for when they experience it yet again in their life? Like no parent wants their child to be disappointed, right? No parent wants any kind of hurt in their child's life. At the same time, we know this is life, right? So if I allow a child to experience it under my care and give them tools to cope with it, uh, am I not preparing them for a better, more balanced future?
Absolutely, we are. Imagine them feeling a complicated emotion like disgust or jealousy within the safety of their own parents, where they can help them navigate that emotion. It's a complicated emotion, right? But we don't do that as parents sometimes because we think we're being protective of our of our children.
Yes.
But we're not. This is where I think we as parents also need to learn, right? We need to be available to help them navigate that space so that tomorrow, when they experience that and we're not around, they know exactly how to cope with it. So, yes, it is very important to let our children feel emotions. Very important. And this does not start in middle school or high school, it starts way younger. When your child is in perhaps preschool and has been pushed by another child and comes home and says meko to usne push kiya, instead of dismissing it, that happens, it's all right, never mind, it's all right. Get into it. Oh, are you hurt? No, I'm not hurt, but it made me feel. All right, what did it make you feel like? Oh, icky feeling, right? Hmm. Wow. Should we do something to make the icky feeling go away? All right, what can we do? Shall we draw it? Shall we dance to it? Shall we have fun with it? What can we do about it? And that's a very young child I'm talking about. But therein you sowed the seed of, okay, I understand you're feeling disappointed that your friend pushed you or you felt upset. Give language to your children in terms of emotions. Therefore, I said that emotional quotient and working on children's emotional adaptability is a very important part in today's day and age.
So does this learning have to be at the parental level first? Because in the Indian context, we are not open to honest conversations. We were not, generationally, traditionally. A lot of times, we've heard of that stern father and that over loving mother, and the children having, very little to do in terms of engagement with the parents in terms of communication. And because that's how they've been brought up, that's what they know. Now they have this flood of information where we're talking of people saying, give words to their emotions and help them deal with their emotions and dance to their emotions, right? So do you think it's actually so important for parents to actually go through some learning themselves?
Absolutely, which is why I said learn with your children, grow with your children. One of the things we have to, I rarely use the word have to, but I think one of the things we have to be open to doing as parents of this generation is to be willing to learn, because we don't know how to navigate this world. You go to a therapist, you go to a psychologist, they also don't know how to navigate this world, because this is the first time we're a post pandemic society where children have been, you know uh, put inside homes for 2 to 3 years and being exposed to a lot of screen time, and now we're asking them to reverse it. So you do realize how confused are we also. So we're in a very, very, very different, new, unusual, unique kind of a setting right now. And we all need to learn from each other. Nobody knows the right way. But we've all got to experiment and move forward with what is working and what's not working. So, it's not like one approach will work with your child. Be ready to experiment with a different approach sometimes.
Right. So, when you're working with parents, do you see them more open to talk about challenges they are facing as parents? Are they more open to seek help when it's needed? Are they more open to address issues that may be related to emotional, mental health, behavioral patterns? Are you seeing a shift in that, or is there a lot of hesitancy still in the Indian society?
It's become a lot better, Kavita. I've been in this practice for the last 15 years now. Initially, the concerns that the parents came up with were poor school academic performance. That's why they were somehow directed and brought to the clinic, because I work at a clinical space. I'm not at the school level, I work one step beyond that. Um, and that would be, he's not doing well in school, he's not doing following teachers, is distracted. Those were the essential concerns that came. And then we, with a lot of work, we understood that child may have anxiety concerns, may have depressive concerns, and all of those things followed from there. Nowadays, one good part about it is that children have also, adolescents have become a lot more aware, where they go to their parents and say, I think I need some help, I want to get outside help. And even parents, I think, to a certain degree, have become a lot more open, with a lot of people also advocating mental health and its importance. I think it's gotten a lot better. Slight taboo has been reduced. It's still a lot there, where when you come to a therapist like me, they'll say, fix my child. That's the approach they used to come up with even earlier. We're trying to change that to fix us as a family, but it's a lot better than what it was earlier. A lot better.
I must share with you at Head Start Mentorship. So we work with students, and some students come with certain skills, some come with another. And I want to take a mention of, without naming the student, of course. I have one student whom I work with. She has, a different learning ability, and she used that. So she was trained. She was fortunate enough that her parents very early on figured it out, and she was given motor skill development to the extent that she is part of the regular school system. But as her social impact initiative, what we are working on is she has created a whole curriculum based on motor skills that she goes and deploys in schools. And it's not only accepting the fact that, look, I have an issue that I have overcome to the best of my ability, but here is the way that I am giving back to students who might not have the facilities that I did. And that, I feel, is so heartening. And another instance of a child who had gone through something with her eyes very early on in her childhood, and she developed a science testing kit for visually impaired students, because she understood what it meant to be able to go past this hurdle. And so when I talk about these instances, or when I'm reminded of these instances in our conversations, it really makes me feel so proud of the work Head Start is doing, and also the platform it's creating for students to come up, to acknowledge themselves and give back.
That's amazing stuff. I think that's really channelizing children in the right direction. So congratulations to you and Headsets. I think you're doing a fabulous job at
I'm very
really.
proud of what we've created at Head
This
Start
is this is
Mentorship.
incredible stuff. Very, very, very beautiful. It almost gave me like goosebumps, while I was hearing about these kids. And please do, convey all my best wishes to them for their respective projects.
But really, Tripti, thank you for this conversation. I think I have learned a lot. I love the way you have calmly and patiently tackled such diverse and difficult topics. And one of the things that maybe in the future we can look forward to is a live session where we can have parents dial in or write to us with their questions, and we will request you to come back and handle all these questions again.
That would be absolutely lovely because the challenges of parents, if I can get that firsthand from a larger audience, I think that is what will help them as well. But thank you for organizing this forum wherein, such important issues which are, plaguing our world today and pertaining to how we can evolve as parents, you've brought all of that out. So thank you so much, Kavita, for this.
Really, thank you very much for this conversation.
Thank you.